Hi everyone, welcome to this part 2 of my interview with my wonderful mother, Barbara Bullard, Professor Barbara Bullard, and I'm Dr. Theresa Bullard, and we are going to continue on with our conversation of women's empowerment and how we're going to create a better world as a whole, as well as some of the journey that she has been through and the wisdom she has to share on that process of women's empowerment. Now, one of the things that I'd really like to hear what advice you have for everyone, and that is the journey to becoming an empowered woman. We often start off like I did, very shy. I was very shy. I had a lot of insecurities, and over time, sometimes I felt like I had to be a bit pushed, outside my comfort zone and encouraged to, rise higher and see myself as bigger than I did. And in the process, ultimately overcoming those insecurities. So maybe you can share a little bit about your own journey of how you went from, maybe not feeling as empowered to becoming an empowered woman.
Glad to. I would have to say I grew up into full womanhood at 9 years of age. I had a 32-inch bust, thin waist. Everybody thought I was 13, 17. It was really hard to be that far ahead, almost 5'5", in 9 years old.
Wow.
And I had bulgarous acne all over. The doctors would cry when I'd walk in because they couldn't do anything. So a lot of people know that I never wear any backless stuff because my back is so scarred that people think I was in a car accident and burned or something. So I just don't like having any discussions about that. But I had to overcome knowing I was fat and ugly. So I've been upwards of 240 pounds in my lifetime. And I had to use my brain to reduce the weight all the time. And then I got married at 18, got divorced at 21. Glad I got married and glad I got divorced. But it taught me a lot about I was never going to give up me to be part of you, us again. And so I stayed out of I was engaged 5 times in between husband 1 and husband 2. And then just one day they'd say the wrong thing and I, hasta bye-bye. So I was really quite surprised to actually end up married to Jay at 28. But I found myself. So I was actually quite an insecure person covering it up with bravado. And I think I found my own way by going to a lot of early workshops. They were called Encounter Movement at that point, and facing. And one night, I was in an encounter group. I'd been teaching for about, 7 years by that time. And 5 guys just attacked me and ripped me and called me a feminist and emasculating bitch. And oh my God, I was shocked. And because I am powerful in my voice, and all of that. But I never had criticism like that ever, except from my father, I suppose. Anyway, I started crying. And I cried pretty much for 48 hours. And then once I got out of that, I said, damn it, I'm enough. Just because I wasn't enough for my first husband, just because I wasn't enough for my dad, I am enough. And I gave me the permission to be fully me at 27. And that's why I teach that in my classes. I said, don't wait as long as I did. You find it now. Because out there's a lot of criticism. And you got to know who you are. Believe me, when I go to the country club, with Jay, I've had his peers tell me that, don't you know that women are to be seen and not heard? I mean, in this day and age, somebody would say that to me. And so many a time Jay has had to go, my wife is a trained debater. She teaches to back them off. Because I'm going to emasculate anybody who tells me I should be seen and not heard in this day and age. So, I don't emasculate, but I would.
Well, I think that you hit the core of it, where our empowerment as women, our strength really comes from knowing who we are.
Who we are.
And giving ourselves permission to fully be ourselves and standing strong in that and not sacrificing who I am in order to be what you want me to be,
Mm-hmm.
or to be with you even. And that's some, place I had to come to on my journey as well, is really getting to that place where I knew who I was and then embraced who I was and realized I am good enough just as I am. I don't need to sacrifice who I am or what I'm here for. I don't need to play small. I don't need to change myself to be what, the man might want me to be so that I can, have the partnership, for example. Every time I tried to do that, to adapt myself to fit into the life of somebody else so that I could have the partnership, I sacrificed a piece of me or my purpose, and everything. It was almost like sometimes women can start wrapping their identity up around their partner, and then they lose their sense of self. And then they're looking for their needs almost to be fulfilled by the partner, the affirmation to come from the partner, because they're no longer giving it to themselves, that affirmation and that fulfillment that comes from being who we are and pursuing our true purpose. So it was a big point to have to get to that place of so many disappointments, or so much, for in your case being cut down, to get to this place where, damn it, no, I'm not going to take that anymore. And I am going to honor myself. I'm going to acknowledge and own it and be me, and not sacrifice me or what I'm here to do and be in order to.
Well, and of course, I believe every relationship you have, you learn from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't think I ever sacrificed after my first husband to be with anybody. I love men. I just didn't love marriage. And so the empowerment, and I'm thrilled that you have finally met your significant, better, other half, in that you are a very powerful woman in a different way that I am. And so it does take a particular man to walk by us. When Jay and I first met, he was going back to college, and I was a full professor. So the disparities were interesting at first, but then 5 years in, he starts his own pool business, and within a year, he was earning more money than me. And that sort of pissed me off, but that's okay.
I don't think there's a problem with the man earning more money than the woman, or the woman earning more than the man. It's just, if we're in co-creation, we're here to mutually support and not feel threatened by somebody else's success.
No, I was just joking, that was just sarcasm.
I know, but but this is important, both for men and women, to not feel threatened by somebody else's success, because like what I see with Dad and you, and what I have experienced with Al and myself, is that when you have a strong woman who is out there in front of people, who is mover and shaker, who is really empowered in the world, and really focused on a career, it takes a certain kind of man to hold the space and be supportive and allow the woman to shine, rather than feeling threatened by. And even to feel proud of that woman when she's doing her thing, and to support that and encourage and admire that. And I feel very supported in that. And I've seen Dad very much support you and allow that space for you to be you. And that's, I think, a really important and beautiful thing when it comes to that relationship between an empowered man and an empowered woman. And then it becomes a very powerful combination. Now, one of the other things I'd like to explore with you is, in your own journey, in your master's degree and so forth, you really studied a lot of the women from the women's suffrage movement, and that all the effort and sacrifice and everything that went in to really bring more rights to women in our society. And then how, in my generation, we had the benefit of having a lot more opportunity and, a lot more effort to create that diversity and opportunity for minorities. I mean, I was a woman who went into athletics and volleyball. I went into science, as a minority woman, not a minority in terms of ethnicity, but a woman being a minority in science. And I feel like I felt encouraged and empowered to do that, often because of your encouragement to move forward and shine and not let those kinds of things hold me back from pursuing what I wanted to pursue. So, there's a lot of benefit and positivity that we've received from previous generations in the efforts of women to bring that right to vote and for greater and greater push towards equality. But there's also times where it seems like some of the feminist movement has gone too far, where the women have tried to fit into a masculinity or a male way of doing things, or even compete for those roles that men have in the world in order to feel empowered, in order to feel equal. And I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are on any of that. You may not agree with me, but
yeah, a little bit not. I'm proud that my dissertation was on Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who's one of the main leaders of the suffrage movement, along with Susan B. Anthony. And I learned a lot, because it's a lot harder on women in politics or women speakers than it is on men. And her example is exactly that. She spoke and was responsible for almost all of the legislative changes. And yet at 80, she was the woman of the century. She decided to write the Woman's Bible and reinterpret how a woman's place is not just, to be silent. And within 1 year, she was vilified from every pulpit in America. And her book was burned. And she died in ignominy. And almost all the credit that what she had done was given to Susan B. Anthony, the quieter one, who didn't rock the boat that much. And what Elizabeth Cady Stanton said, women will never be able to be free if they cannot own property and if they cannot get divorced. Look, it only got to 1976 when the last law was taken off to allow women to get divorced. A man in most countries could say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. A woman, you can be burned at the stake with the husband if he dies before you do. So there's a lot of inequality everywhere else, but we in America are really lucky, because I don't care if some of those women want to be men. I don't care. I understand how much a woman has to work to get the same respect a man does. And I'm just lucky that I'm in a field where I'm paid the same amount as my male peers. And so I've been lucky that way.
Well, you've really earned that, though, too. You've been voted as one of the top teachers, and, you changed so many students' lives. You've been, in education for so long. So, you really earned that as well, versus just being given it just because, right? It's like, and so be proud of the fact that you'd earned that way up to that point.
I start my classes by talking about my resume. And I go, now why would I do that on the first day? I go, yeah, why did you do that? I said, because I want you to know that I am to be respected. From now on, we're going to have nice, warm discussions. But man, if you don't respect me as a teacher, you watch my resume come out. And so, I don't have to do it later.
Well, now there's an example of setting some boundaries and guidelines for people.
Day one.
A very strong, sometimes it might seem a little abrupt or severe, but it's asserting the boundaries that you will honor. And that is, I think, if more women were doing that, instead of saying you need to honor us, it's just, I honor myself and you will honor. There's a difference in that.
And I want you to honor each other.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody's talking about, you will respect it. You may not agree with it. But when somebody says anything in this class, mutual respect is what's mandatory in this class. And I've kicked people out.
Well, that would be amazing if we had more mutual respect in our world today, and all the conversations that are happening in our world.
It's gotten really bizarre lately.
It's gotten nasty, because people don't even want to hear the other side of the argument or another person's perspective. And if you don't agree, then we're going to attack you, versus we're going to have a debate or a dialogue or a discussion here where we can mutually respect and intelligently have this conversation and maybe even, open each other's eyes to perspectives that we hadn't considered before. So that's a wonderful thing that you really instill that into your classes. I think if there's any final words that you would have for women in particular to, really move forward into their next level of empowerment, what words of advice would you have?
To detach the self-image from the self-esteem. Too many women, and men too now, but women tend to equate self-esteem, self-liking, with being thin. And I had long ago to say, even if I'm in a 14 or a 16, I'm okay. I will never be a size 9 again. And I don't know, maybe I was size 9 at 9, but I had to give that particular thing up. And I will never be Raquel Welch. But I tell my students, anybody who can't see my inner beauty, it's your loss.
But you still show up very much like
I
in
like
your goddess essence.
Yes, my goddess.
You express it in your own unique way, and you own it. So it's not like you don't try, to bring your own beauty into the world and express it outwardly. We are not this body, right? This is not who we are. And the more we get to know who we are inside and find that inner beauty, and then find our own unique way of expressing that into our outer world, that is where our self-esteem, comes from, is knowing who we are inside, and finding our expression of it into the world and just owning it, right? Versus trying to create that self-esteem from the outside in, from physicality and superficiality in.
I also tell my students, I'm not the lucky one that had the beauty on the outside, but I have 3 kids who are the beautiful people. And I can tell you that there's a lot of prejudice when you are a woman, especially tall, like both you and Christina, very attractive, very athletic, very powerful people. And I've watched people judge you just because of your introversion and your beauty and your intellect, and you can do anything. Wasn't it in the 9th grade you were elected as the biggest snob? And you go, yeah. I'm not a snob. And I go, no, you aren't. So it was funny because people...
It wasn't funny.
No, it wasn't funny to her. It was funny to me. And so remember, and you said, and I'm not popular, but you said next year I will be. And I said, there are many, many more important things to me than you being popular. So to me, popularity is overstated.
Overrated. Well, and especially, in high school, we get so caught up in having to fit in and be popular. Yeah. But, the people who maybe were the big kids on campus and the most popular ones in high school didn't necessarily, strive and become the great people later. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but not if they based their self-esteem on their popularity.
Most women who are not empowered didn't have parents like us. They didn't have, but you still have to claim it. Whether you claim it at 24, whether you claim it at 28, whether you claim it at 48, all of us have to say, this is who I am, and I like me this way, and these are my talents, and go and do that. So wherever you find yourself, either go to classes. I think your life activation everybody should have that. I think that's an extraordinary and powerful event. And a lot of your workshops are. But the life activation, that to me, even myself as an empowered person, felt that one and grew from it and encouraged hundreds of my students to have it. Yeah.
Okay, so this has been an amazing conversation. I know we have more to get to. So join us again as we wrap up this interview with our part 3. And if you've enjoyed this, please do share, as well as like and subscribe. And we will see you next time for the final diving into this conversation on women's empowerment.